Do you want to be a part of our special People's Club? If you do, join us for this 1995 middle school coming-of-age film, and you can be as special as you want. This is the Unsung Cinematics Podcast, where we review some of the best-kept secrets in TV and film. Every week, your hosts, Stuart and Rastislav, present you with a misunderstood movie to see if it deserves the title of being unsung. Good day, morning, or evening, depending on where you are right now, and welcome to episode number 11 of the Unsung Cinematics Podcast. Thankfully, COVID-19 hasn't gotten me or Rosto yet, and thanks for joining me today, Rosto.
Hi there, Stu. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Hey, and
so far, so good. And we are actually reviewing the Todd Solondz movie. That's actually his debut. I would say the second debut, because the first debut was kind of flop. And then he got famous on this movie. It puts him on the map. And it's called Welcome to the Dollhouse. And it's from 1995. And as you said, it is coming on age, black comedy, I would say, with lots of, I would say, sexual elements and lots of swearing. I think it's rated R. I'm not sure. I don't know if you check it out.
Yes, for sure. Actually, I don't think it's rated R. It's probably rated PG-13. Ratings are a little less loose back then as well. But this film, the film follows around a quirky and dorky girl named Dawn as she navigates middle school. And I guess I can roll the clip. Why not, eh?
Of course.
You didn't come in here to wash your hands.
Yes, I did.
You came in here to take a shit.
No, really. I don't have to go. My hands were just dirty, that's all.
Liar. I can smell you from here.
Please let me go.
First, take a shit.
But I'll be late for science.
Well, you're not leaving until you do.
That was a very interesting clip indeed, especially if you're in the bathroom and you have to take a shit. And if I think she really did have to take a shit, actually, and she was just trying to get out of the bathroom.
Yeah, she was afraid of her. And then she offered her actually to be a member of the Special People Club in exchange of Lolita would stop bothering her, right?
Right, yeah. And actually, she wasn't a bully for the whole part of the movie. It was kind of almost just the start that she was being bullied. I guess it was more to just introduce the film and this concept of bullying back then.
Yeah, she was sort of Brandon's girlfriend, but he wasn't really interested in her, right? And then he was actually more and more interested in Dawn.
Right. Yeah, she certainly was. So the movie duration was 87 minutes long, and it did get some pretty good reviews back in the day when it first came out. We have IMDb with a 7.4 out of 10, and the critic review on Metascore was 83. Rotten Tomatoes also reports in that 90% critic review, which is almost unnaturally high, with an 86. Right. So I don't know if this movie is considered completely unsung, because it was quite popular back then. It did gross quite well in the...
Well, it was put on the list of most underrated high school movies in the 90s decade. So that's one of the reasons we are reviewing this.
Right.
Because it it could deserve a little bit more of attention. However, with the very heavy topic of the movie and various slurs, I think it's kind of not getting much attention, right?
You're right. I mean, obviously, it's not getting attention anymore. It probably didn't get a lot of attention after maybe 1997-8. But actually, the actor, Heather Matarazzo, was actually on the Tonight Show back in 1996, and she talked about her role a little bit on that. So it's not like it wasn't completely unsung, but maybe in certain... It wasn't a blockbuster.
Yeah, in certain aspect, it was a bit unsung, and but I mean, it was demographically, I think it was a movie only for that period, I guess.
That period,
and because I think nobody would dare to use such a language and phrasing, nowadays anymore.
No, in certain scenes were very, I'm not going to say grotesque, but the language and the content were a little more raw than you wouldn't be able to get away with a film like this today. And actually, it did receive a lot of awards, or it did receive some awards and nominations, but...
Yeah, Sundance Festival, some winner, Berlin International Film. It got to Toronto too. There were some, I don't know if nomination or winner, and it was all over the place at the time. And basically, Todd Solondz, and together with Heather Matarazzo and Christina Brucato, also Brendan Sexton, they were all kind of put on the map by this movie. And
wasn't this Todd's feature? Basically, it was his feature film. It wasn't his first film, but it was his first feature film that actually received any sort of praise. But I believe his first film that he did was a complete flop, and nobody was interested in whatsoever. So he took, I think, 10 years off from basically film production. And I think he taught English.
No wonder
or
it was a flop, because the name of the title was Fear, Anxiety, and Depression. I mean, I think the title of the movie is not very.
Maybe it sounded a little more like a documentary than an actual film.
Yeah, it's not very cheerful too, right? So, and he himself actually suffers depression and anxiety, and if you saw some interviews, you could see like he's definitely dosed by antidepressants. So
he had a very
the way he talks and everything else. So that's very unfortunate, actually. And he actually was kind of disappointed by the failure of his first project, and then he actually teaches, I think, Russian immigrants, right?
Right. Yeah, he was teaching Russian immigrants English, I believe. Yeah.
In Newark, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and this is actually displayed in his movie Happiness. That's his another feature.
Right. Yeah. Some other things that were of note, I noticed that were kind of interesting to me about the film, where he took a lot of liberties in filming, and some of the stuff that he was doing to produce the film was not really legal in the U.S. He had mentioned in one interview that he was filming at night, which I don't understand why, but back at the time, apparently filming at night was not really legal, and it may be due to labor laws or something. But
just to correct you, maybe it was because of the working with the children. So I mean, children labor law wouldn't allow to work children during the nights.
Right.
Basically, they were doing lots of filming during the night. So Heather Matarazzo and the other children, they would have to be on the set. So that was the problem actually. Otherwise, if they are all adults, they would be able to do the shoots during the night. But it was because of the children.
Okay, well, that would make a lot more sense.
Right.
He also said in one of his interviews as well that a big part of the film was inspired by Wonder Years, and not exclusively. I think everybody in Western society, or the U.S. and Canada anyways, understands the show Wonder Years, and it was maybe a very similar film in a lot of ways, except the narration style would have been a lot different, obviously. But
yeah, I never seen that show. I never even heard about that. So
it was quite popular back in the 80s and I would say early 90s. It was based 1957, and it's basically following this family around, and it's another coming of age TV series.
Okay. Is it based on high school too?
It starts off middle school, and then by the end, they're both in high school, and there's three main characters in the TV show, two brothers, and the younger brother's sort of on again, off again girlfriend, and actually his best friend as well. So I guess there's four main characters.
Oh, okay. So that was his inspiration, right?
Right. He said there was inspiration from other sources as well, but I think that was a big part of it.
Right. And he wrote it actually, I think, in 88, and he kind of put it in the drawer because he was kind of disappointed from the experience before. And then his friend persuaded him to do another movie, and he did, and he did good.
For sure. It was much better than that. He had mentioned... Todd had mentioned as well that he wanted to take a few more liberties in the film to make it even a little more grotesque and brutal, but he did not. And actually, one of the names he wanted to call the film, at least in his head, he wanted to call the film "Faggots and Retards," which would definitely
that wouldn't go through for sure.
That would not go through. Even back then, it wouldn't go through. Today, if you tried to name a movie that, you would have all the social justice warriors completely trashing you, and it would not go over well at all.
Yeah, very bad marketing, yeah, of course. And did we mention the budget?
No, we didn't. The budget was $800,000, actually, wasn't it?
800,000, and box office was 5 million. So basically, he made money for his other features. And just to mention, Welcome to the Dollhouse is actually part of the triptych. You have another two movies. One
trilogy,
is called
you mean?
Triptych, a trilogy. Okay, trilogy. Yeah. And another one is called Palindromes, 2004, and Winner Dog, actually, 2016. But Heather Matarazzo refused to participate in these projects because she didn't feel like to play this crazy character, quirky girl, and so on. So,
well, I think she commits suicide in the second. I didn't see it, but I think she commits suicide quite early, doesn't she?
Yeah. I saw the second project, Palindromes, but I'd never seen the Winner Dog.
Okay.
And actually, the rating is pretty low. So
I'm thinking maybe we should. I watched a trailer for Wiener Dog, 2015. I think it was produced, but it has Danny DeVito and Greta Gerwig in it. I thought the trailer was interesting. Maybe that's something we can add to our list down the road, doing a review of Wiener Dog.
For sure, of course, I'm for it.
And actually, I think Wiener Dog was also partly inspired, Or no, sorry, I got it backwards. Have you ever seen the movie Cruel Intentions?
I did, actually, yeah.
So that was actually... The inspiration for Cruel Intention was actually based on this film. So...
okay.
Yeah, so...
That makes sense, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
And I just wanted to mention about the budget. Basically, 800,000 is not very much, and plus you have to consider that Todd Solondz actually did this movie on 35 millimeter. So you didn't have the digitalized equipment yet. So basically, it's kind of amazing that he actually managed to do this movie only for 800,000. You
right.
know, because it's actually 35 millimeters. You know, we have to go through the completely different process. Like today, you know, today everything is digitalized.
Right.
You have it right away in this position. But back then, you had to develop the film and then work with it. You know, edit it. It was much more. I would say. Much more work around the typical classic 35 millimeter movie.
Right. Yeah,
So,
I think it might have been 35 millimeter, but there's also super 35 millimeter, which was very popular around the time for filming movies. But there was digital. I mean, there was computers doing editing at the time, but you still had to take the film off the camera and, you know, process it that way before you could get into the computer. So
yeah, of course.
Actually, there was some digital. I'm not going to say film, but almost like a VHS tape that there was back at the time where you could throw it into a player. I remember this from my high school, actually. They had a bunch of Amiga equipment, and then you would pop the tape in, and then it would transport it to the computer, and then you could work on it from there.
Okay. That makes sense. And so how did you like basically, how did you... what is your take on the comedy aspect of the movie? Did you actually laugh?
Yeah, I laughed. It was I'm not going to say it was nonstop laughter. I don't think that was the intention of the movie. But there were some scenes that were a little bit comical. You know, you just have a good chuckle.
Yeah, I had a few chuckles too. You know, and I was actually teaching at the public school for almost a year, some years ago, and I remember exactly, you know, like students from 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, you know, they would be exactly like they were describing this movie. You know, like when you have, let's say, that scene when Dawn is in the principal office, you know, after she shot a speedball, and when he was talking to her, you can see through the window those three guys, you know, giving finger to her, you know. So it was kind of typical 11, 12 years old boys. I mean, you know, doing what they, you know, do when they are in puberty.
Yeah, I mean, it was fairly realistic in the way it portrayed bullying. I mean, in 1994, if you were being bullied, you either turned around and bullied back, or you just kind of retreated into isolation. So it was basically fight or flight.
Yeah. Exactly.
People were a little tougher. I mean, kids were a little tougher back then. Obviously, not every kid back then was able to to cope with it. But
but it was really realistic, and I had lots of laughs on certain scenes. It kind of reminded me of my times when I was teaching. So it was really funny, and it's kind of interesting that basically, even though Todd Solondz was suffering from depression, anxiety, like how he managed actually to make those comical scenes, and how he managed to work with the acting crew. I consider that for really amazing job. Considering how he was.
Right. I think a big part of comedy comes from depression. A lot of comedians, I believe, are actually a little depressed, and that's where their comedy comes from, because they can take the darker sides of humanity and turn it around and turn it into a joke, because they're very close to the subject matter.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because let's take Robin Williams. He was suffering with very deep depression, but on the other hand, he could do those comedies and everything else, and he was really gifted with the words and everything else, and he would make you laugh. But on the other hand, we would never suspect he was deeply depressed. So
no, you would never know that he was depressed. But there was interviews that he definitely mentioned, and I guess you could kind of see it a little bit in his films as well. He always had his face always kind of had, I don't know if I have the right term, maybe a sullen look to it, where he was almost downtrodden a bit, even though he was smiling and cheerful. There was always this, almost looked like a weight on his shoulders.
Yeah, something in the eyes, right? You could see something
in the eyes, right?
Yeah. So basically, I found it entirely realistic. Not all the movie, not all the scenes. However, the dialogue and the certain situations and the story was realistic, because Dawn was the second one from 3 siblings, right? And you have Missy, she's 8 years old. Then you have Dawn, she's 11 or 12. And then you have Mark, who is 17. So I believe there might be some tension. The middle one is always on the worst position, correct?
Middle child.
Yeah. Yeah, middle child, that's the worst position, because he's kind of like nowhere, because the older one, he's already taking care of himself, his career, and he's thinking about the college and good resume. And the youngest one, she's a darling of the family and so on.
Right.
And the middle one is kind of nowhere,
Right.
So
she was pretty dorky. She had her choice of clothes was very plain and maybe a little bit abnormal.
Yeah, she was still playing in this dollhouse and.
Yeah, well, I mean, not a literal dollhouse, but it was like the special people's club, the fort, in the backyard. She had these dorky thick glasses. Like everyone in the school basically thought she was. They called her a lesbo in one of the opening scenes.
Yeah, lesbo, dog face, wiener dog.
Wiener dog, yeah.
And basically she was bullied by everyone. Not only by classmates, but she was bullied by teachers, because she was put on detention. Nobody would kind of take her side,
Right.
Not even parents, not even her brother, not even Missy.
There was it was a little comical. The one kid that was kind of in the club with her, he actually must have liked her because he was always.
Ralphie.
I mean, he wasn't a big part of the plot, but he was like the only kid that kind of liked her and kind of stood on her side.
Yeah, he was, but then she just flushed him down. But that's another story. But I think that students who are kind of losers, they don't like to be surrounded by even bigger losers. You know what I mean? So basically, eventually, she kind of stopped meeting this Ralphie.
Right.
Because
She was trying to get out of her hole. It's the chain. The chain of command of dorkiness and coolness factor, like for instance, the guy on the top, and then it kept going down from there. So you want to try to go up the totem pole rather than down it, right?
Exactly, because she said herself, I want to be popular, right? So he wouldn't help her popularity at all, and so that's why she was starting to look around on more maybe handsome guys, more older guys, and so on. At the same time, she was starting to discover her sexuality, and all this, kind of changed her life entirely.
For sure. I mean,
yeah.
I think most kids are in that same boat. I even remember back in middle school where if you didn't have the right type of clothes on with the right logos, you were considered like a little bit of an outcast or a nerd or whatever.
Right. Can you maybe explain what it means, high school in the school system? Because we don't really have it here. Because I know I only read on the Wikipedia that middle high school, it means 6th, 7th, and 8th graders separately in some sort of.
Well, in Canada, and the States are even different from each other. In Canada, you, for the most part, you just have from grades 1 through 8 are all one school, and then high school is grade 9 to 12, and actually there used to be a grade 13. In the States, though, they have a lot more emphasis on middle school, which is, I think it varies from grades 7, 8, and 9, and 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah. So, okay. So it's not in the Canadian school system, right? This middle school.
I think there may be some private schools in Canada, or maybe in BC there might be one or two, but it's not big here.
Oh, okay. So you don't really know the deeper reason why they established this kind of school, Maybe to take care of students who starting the puberty, a little bit more, something like that. I was thinking, what's the background of this kind of project?
Well, there is one TV series called King of the Hill. It's a cartoon.
Okay. I think I saw it. Yeah.
Right. It's Beavis and Butthead. Same producer and director on the project, but they would probably, if you're looking to understand it, I would say probably watch that, because there's a lot of the plot is surrounded on middle school type of activities and what it's like to be in middle school for the kid. It's not exclusively about him, but I would say that's probably a good way. Or even Wonder Years. If you watch Wonder Years, you'll understand middle school as well.
Okay. So basically, what's your take on director choice of cast?
The cast is typical for the 1990s. I mean, I enjoy 80s and 90s movies much more immensely than I do modern stuff, because the characters are always acting the roles better, and the characters are more dynamic. It's not just a bunch of cookie cutter kind of actors.
Right.
So,
Right.
So I would say the
Yeah.
director's choice is good, just because it was what people did at the time. I'm not going to say it was outstanding. I don't think he went out of his way to find like the best actors possible, but
he picked really good casting, and actually Heather Matarazzo, she's supposed to be playing some other character, but then eventually when Todd Solondz was casting her, he noticed that she would be really good for the actual main character.
yeah.
And that was a really good choice because Heather Matarazzo is really talented.
Oh, for sure.
Together with, and I also like the Brendan Sexton and the other kids too. You know.
No,
I think they had lots of fun. You know.
They were good choices. I mean, I don't think he had a very difficult time making the choices, anyways. So.
Right.
How about the dialogue? What did you think? What was your take on that?
I think dialogue was real and realistic, and I didn't find anything that would surprise me or would be weird. I don't know what you think. It was just dialogue of the high schoolers.
It was. I found it a little bit witty, but also fairly normal and typical of high school and middle school at the time.
Exactly. I mean, you have 6, 7, 8 graders. They certainly already know how to swear and curse. You know, so that was really typical. You know, using lots of F words and all kinds of like hard dialogue and harsh dialogue and so on.
Right, there's some pretty harsh dialogue, such as in one scene, actually more than one scene, they explore rape a little bit. I think the line, I had written down the line here somewhere. Let's see. What was the line? I think it was to the effect of, meet me at 3 p.m. I'm going to rape you.
Yeah.
I'm going to rape you. And this was this was what was said to Dawn, and I believe it was Eric. Yeah, Eric was was cast for that role. Steve Rogers was the character's name.
Oh no! That was Brendan Sexton said. Character name is Brendan. Brendan McCarthy, and that's her classmate, and he said to Dawn actually that he's going to rape her, and then she was uneasy the whole day. She was waiting. She was trying to slip through the school in some different entrance, but he was there, of course, and.
Right. Yeah, he was trying to copy her test paper, and I think he kind of was always interested in her a little bit because of her quirky nature, and he was just kind of teasing her to try to get her attention, maybe.
He was, and it's kind of typical because when you like some girl, you're trying to get attention. Even by maybe some unorthodox way, because you're still trying to keep your cool in front of your peers, and at the same time you're trying to get her attention. So that's why he was asshole towards her, because when he was together with the other guys, he wouldn't dare to. Be more gentle and so on, because he would be ridiculed, right? So I think that's the reason how he behaves. And plus, he looks like he's not really from some great family, because his father looks kind of, okay, like some sort of bum or something, and they live in this crappy house, and plus they have to take care of the brother who's got the Down syndrome. Right.
He was also trying to climb up the social ladder as well. I mean, he wasn't down there, but he wasn't on the top either. So
overall, that's what I'm trying to say. Like that's why I found the dialogues very realistic.
Right.
Throughout the whole movie, basically. Of course, I found the plot and story really dynamic and interesting. Not nail biting, but it kept me on my chair, and I watched the movie on one watch, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't divide. Usually I would divide the movie, but in this case I was just watching the whole thing at once, and I was really entertained, and basically if I can summarize, the plot is about it's focused on this quirky 7th grader or 6th grader, not sure right now. Her name is Dawn Wiener, and even her surname is really unfortunate because, people call her Wiener Dog, to ridicule her name and everything else and her ugliness. And her parents are kind of not very attentive to her. She doesn't have any support from parents. And her brother, he thinks only about himself and his college resume, correct? And basically, we have the slice of life of this girl, how she's discovering her sexuality, how she wants to be popular, and how she lives through her life, even though bullied every day, and basically nobody would be there to help her. And she still can manage to get up, she still can manage to go to school, do the thank you speech and everything else.
Right.
And at the end of the movie, we see her going to this field trip to Disney World, and it kind of tells me like, okay, girl, it's not time for fooling around yet. Just be a kid for a little while more. And then maybe later you can start. It kind of the conclusion of the movie was kind of reconciliating all those maybe sexual nature of the movie, which doesn't really fit the 11 years old girl. So at the end we see, okay, this girl is going to the trip, she sings this some sort of high school anthem, and she goes back to being kid.
Right. I don't believe her sexuality was really on her mind in the movie. I mean, even though there were many sexual references, I think she was kind of going along with it because more to up her popularity rather than because she wanted to be sexually active.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, not sexuality on the explicit sense, of course. She didn't even know, what she wanted to do,
Right.
As an 11-year-old, of course.
Oh, for sure. She kind of meanders her way through the story, kind of almost just latching on to other people and other situations. I mean, she tried to latch on to Steve, the high school guy. He was this very laid back. He had long hair. He was a part of her brother's band. And they were actually singing "Welcome to the Dollhouse" or whatever it is. Goofy kind of high school crappy band that they were trying to start, and make themselves famous at. And she was kind of doing a little dance on the hood of the car there, like, I'm right into this, this dancing. Even though you could tell she wasn't really a dancer by any means, it was her younger sister that was into ballet, and she was prancing around and she had rhythm, but Dawn was totally kind of a little bit clumsy, even a little bit, and kind of just awkward.
She was. Even her, she plays piano, but her playing really sucks, basically. Is really, really bad. She was trying to play Chopin, and it was just horrible, when
she was in the house?
When the guy was there, I forgot his name.
You mean Steve?
Steve, oh, sorry, yeah. When Steve was there, right? She was playing for him. Like, it was horrible.
she was...
Basically...
Go ahead.
Yeah, basically, like you said, like, she was kind of nowhere, because all her talents basically went to waste,
Oh,
she wasn't good in playing piano. She wasn't good in playing. She wasn't good in communication with younger guys. She wasn't good in communication with older.
She didn't have friends.
Yeah, so
she seemed like she had no talent. She had no skills. She basically had nothing. It was like she was just this ghost that was floating around and just kind of annoying people more than anything.
Really, yeah, she was really in a horrible situation.
and then when her and Steve were alone and at the house together, he was waiting for her brother to come home. She's trying to play I guess Dollhouse, or Homemaker. She was trying to make him food and stuff and be like all attentive to his needs, and he was just like going along with it, like, yeah, sure, I'll take some food, why not? But
and he takes the money from the kitchen table.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Steve found some money attached to some, I guess, to some bill or something, and it was probably ready for either mother or father to pay some bills, and he just took it and puts it in his pocket.
Right, like it's nothing.
Kind of fun. Like it's nothing, He just steals the money.
Right.
And then she goes, "You want to see my fingers?" That was funny.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I see them. Okay.
Goofy.
Yeah, that was funny. But the plot is pretty obvious, we have the certain period of time, and
no one's going to say that the plot is super in depth. It's not meant to be, but it does explore, maybe on a surface level, what it's like to be in high school at the time, and maybe even explores a little bit, maybe a precursor to what bullying is like.
It also it explores, goes really deep to the character, actually, because her brother, he's very selfish, actually, and he doesn't care about her. He cares only about his extracurriculum activities, his college resume. Her mother is focused only on Missy, and father is kind of non-present, correct?
Right.
He's kind of meek and humble, and just nodding.
Well, the time period back in the 90s and even the 80s, it was still considered fairly, I would say, important that you get very good grades and go to college. It was less about, how I feel and what you should be feeling, and more about you better be getting good grades because you need to go to college. Being pushed to college and university and doing well in school was, in a lot of families, a very top priority. I'm not going to say every family was like that.
But most of them, yeah.
Most of them.
I would say most of the suburban families, right, like middle class and so on, they were focused on children to go to college and have a good job and everything else, right? So this is really coming out in this movie, correct?
It was very we want to, but we also need to, as Ken would say, keep up with the Joneses, right?
Keep up with the exactly.
And if you're not keeping up with the Joneses, you're gonna not do well in life, and you're gonna end up being a bum or on the street or a prostitute or any other number of things.
Yeah, you're gonna be doomed, and you're gonna be bum and everything else. And yeah. So you see, it describes the reality of 80s and 90s.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe something that Todd Solondz experienced. And Todd Solondz is actually, I think he's a dropout. He never finished his college. He was studying filmmaking, and he dropped.
Well, that could very well be. I would definitely not agree with him, but I mean, I've been in that situation. I'm also a college dropout. My specialty.
Well, here you go.
My specialty was technology more than anything, and I felt that I didn't need a college degree, and to some extent, I didn't on other aspects. I probably should have. It would have made the journey a little bit easier into certain careers, but I managed to get where I am today and start a business without a college degree. And I was a bit of I'm going to say, not a rebel, but I was kind of always pushing back at the system, and I would always make fun of my college teachers because I knew more about the technology than they did, and that was probably a big reason why I dropped out, because of my arrogance, and I could have just stuck it out.
Well, here you go. You see, you went there, and because it was kind of trend that time,
right?
Everybody must have college,
right? Everyone must have college and graduate so you can get the white picket fence, the house, and
good job and everything else, and
2.5 kids, the car, the 2 cars in the driveway.
So you can see this through the whole movie, right? And about the characters, also I found very interesting how Dawn, when she was bullied, then she would take it out on Missy, actually,
right?
Because she was called Lesbo, and then she called Missy Lesbo, right? Or Brandon was mouthing, constantly, "fuck you," and so on. He was mouthing that word to Dawn, and then she was doing the same to Missy during the family dinner,
right?
Correct?
Oh, for sure. That. So I
found it kind of interesting, because this is something what you said. Like, I was bullied, so I'm gonna bully too. Correct?
And exactly. When I was around her age, maybe even younger, I was bullied, and you know what?
Then you bullied too. Yeah.
I didn't want to put up with it any longer, and I said, forget it, and I started bullying somebody else who was in, and eventually I stopped bullying. It was kind of weird back then. You were kind of expected. Everyone kind of bullied each other in some way. There was no. I'm not gonna say there weren't nice kids, but it was almost like a rite of passage, and that's how it kind of ties back into Wonder Years. It's about being tough and toughening up, and because when you get out to the real world, nobody's going to be looking out for you. You have to be.
You have to prepare. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, today when you look at bullying, it's taken a 180-degree turn. If you're being bullied at school, immediately you're chastised. Sorry, if you're bullying, not being bullied, if you're bullying at school, you're immediately chastised by a large portion of the school, and actually you get into real trouble, and not just with the school officials, but also you could be charged by the police.
Legal troubles, yeah, legal troubles.
Right, and back in the 80s and 90s, that wouldn't happen. They cared more about things like gangs, drugs, and other things that were actually really criminal, not bullying. Now, I'm not saying bullying can't end in criminal action, but typically you had things like hazing and, sort of teasing, and maybe someone's punching you a little bit. There were, in my high school, there were plenty of fights. I went to a technical institute, and there was fights probably every couple of weeks, and that was just how things were, It was part of growing up and part of, toughening up.
It was part of the life, and nobody would report it at the time. At the time, I mean. There were no, today you have all kinds of links. You can call some sort of helping center and so on, and it would be, there would be legal action taken. Of course, the person would be expelled from school. But back in 80s and 90s, yeah, like you said, nobody really cared, and plus nobody would report you even. When I was bullied, I would just take it. Right.
Hey, you don't want to be a snitch.
Yeah, I don't want to be a rat. Correct. So I wouldn't go to parents or to police or I don't know who, to say, okay, I was bullied. I just keep it for myself. And then, like you said, maybe I did a little bit of bullying myself, and then when you are maybe in third grade of high school, you have another interest, so you don't really care anymore. But it's pretty much realistic in this movie, how the bullying went on and everything else, and maybe even that's why this movie today wouldn't go through for sure. And demographically, the movie is focused only for maybe viewers.
I would say Generation X and the Boomers, possibly. Like Gen Z and the Millennials, they probably wouldn't really understand this movie, to tell you the truth. I mean, unless they were more inquisitive in nature, but for the average person, I don't think they would really get the movie.
Exactly. So maybe that's why a few years ago they said it's most underrated movie. However, it's of course it's underrated because when you take this movie, and some millennial would watch it, many think.
I'm not sure what they would think of it. Really, I mean, it might be like kind of something off on Mars to them. I don't know.
Exactly, and plus also you have lots of slurs about sexuality, which is very sensitive topic today,
right?
And so on. So I'm saying no wonder it's underrated today, correct?
Right.
And however, I think it's a really good piece of cinema that should stay around. Maybe it's some kind of capture of 80s and 90s. Okay, this is how it was.
There were plenty of movies similar to this in the 80s and 90s. And at TV shows, there was a popular TV show that was produced in Canada called I'm trying to think, Degrassi Junior High, and it had the same sort of premise. It was, I think it was like 1989. It sort of first.
I remember watching Degrassi, but I mean, of course not here in Europe, but when I used to live in Canada, I watched few episodes, but I don't remember guys swearing. I think it was pretty soft, right?
Well, obviously, because the Canadian censors would have put a clamp down on swearing for sure, but the topics that they were exploring were very, I would say, similar. They were exploring teenage pregnancy, rape, drugs, I mean, the whole 9 yards, all the kind of vices that kids would get into in grade 7, 8, 9, and 10. I mean, I think they're even still producing a show based on Degrassi, but...
Oh, it's still going?
Yeah, I think it's like the fourth sequel to it now, maybe even fifth. I don't know. I haven't followed it now for a while, but they had, I think, Degrassi Junior High, they had Degrassi High, and then there was like Next Generation, and I think there's even one after that. I would have to look it up, but...
Oh, okay, that's interesting. They probably copied maybe what Beverly Hills 90210 show did. Well, yeah. I'm not going to say that. 90210 is kind of more of a ditzy sort of thing. I don't find that particularly insightful, but Degrassi, for the most part, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the show, but I understand that it was popular because it was very close to the truth. And actually, there is a real high school in Toronto that it was based on. So, oh, okay.
90210 is kind of flighty and fluffy and kind of like they didn't. Yeah, some of the topics maybe were a little bit, maybe some parallel to other shows of the time, but I didn't find it particularly good.
Right. So what's your funniest scene, or three funniest scenes, or whatever? Oh, jeez,
you're putting me on the spot here. Three funniest scenes, and for the viewers out there, I tried to watch this is kind of funny. I tried to watch the movie a second time last night so I could take more notes about my funny scenes and whatnot, but I couldn't get the movie to run. I don't know what was going on with my internet, so I kind of gave up. So that's why I may not be delving hugely into the plot. So I'll ask you, Rosto, what are your three funniest scenes instead?
Okay. Well, the stealing the money from the kitchen table was really funny because we see this idol, like she idolized this guy, Steve, and he's basically, he just comes and he steals the money from the family, that was kind of funny to me. And the scene when she was playing the piano and then she goes like, "Wanna see my fingers?" That was funny because basically she was talking to this other girl who used to go out with Steve, and I don't want to say it here, and she told him that they had something together which requires fingers, so I don't want to go deep to it. And then she goes to Steve, and she goes like, "Want to see my fingers?" That was kind of funny for me too. And also the scene when there was this anniversary party, 20th anniversary of marriage party at the backyard, and Dawn is kind of decided to tell him the truth, that she loves him, to tell the truth to Steve, and she goes there, but then she kind of got cold feet because he's in the garage with the other girl,
right?
And then she goes like, "Okay, I want to ask you something important," and she was just about to tell him like, "Okay, I love you, I would like to go out with you," and so on. And then she goes, "Would you like to be honorary member of our special club house?" And he goes like, what? Like, what the hell you want from me? So that was kind of funny too.
That was actually, I'm going to say, one of my funny scenes as well, where he's basically explaining to Dawn, you want to join my special people's club? And then he's replying, well, don't you know what that means? The special people's club is for retards.
Yeah. Special people equals retards, right? So
right. And it was very funny because, yes, in 1994, we had classes that were called the special classes, and this is literally for retards.
Oh, okay. Special classes basically for retards, right? For pupils who wouldn't manage to follow the curriculum and so on, correct?
Right. And it wasn't just it wasn't for bad apples. It was literally for people who had learning disabilities.
Exactly. So he was kind of right, correct?
Right. I wonder if this podcast is going to have some controversy because we're kind of going off the rails a little bit here. But, we do have to talk about it because in the context of everyone just remember, this is spoken in the context of 1994. We're not speaking this in the context of 2020. So try not to be too offended.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And plus the movie itself going off the rail, correct? So
right,
we have to comment on it, right? Somehow,
right? For sure.
And the story goes also. I found it kind of ironical, correct? Because Dawn is kind of beaten down in her life, and then purposely she forgets to tell Missy that father's car is broken and nobody is there, and nobody would be there to pick her up from her ballet class. Right.
That was a little bit I'm not going to use the word mean. I'm going to say the word is maybe spiteful of her.
Very spiteful. Yeah, and she did that on purpose because all the love of her parents were focusing on Missy, right? So she was jealous of Missy. Yes. And Missy was also a little bit manipulative.
Oh, yeah. She was at that age where she was at that cusp of she knew she could get away with certain things if she did this, the A, B, and C. And it was kind of interesting watching her sort of her mind. Her mind exactly. Sort of twist around there to manipulate others around her.
Yeah, she did that. She was very manipulative, and she was using all that attention to her benefit. And then she goes, Dawn purposely, didn't say, and then she was kidnapped by this deviant, this.
I think he was a pedophile on it. It sounded.
Yeah.
He didn't actually do anything to her, just for the audience's sake, but apparently she. I'm doing air quotes right now, but apparently nothing had happened to her, and she was treated quite well by her kidnapper. So take it for what it is. And
what actually Mark says, her brother, he says that she actually had all control over the pusher, so she could watch TV, whatever she wanted, and except this kidnapper would make some video of her making pirouettes. Nothing else happened.
Right.
So she's the same.
On an unrelated note, I found it a little odd that they kept calling the remote control the pusher. That was a little weird. I don't know why they kept calling it the pusher.
That was weird to me too. I don't know. Maybe it's part of the New Jersey dialect or something. I don't know. I'm not sure.
It could be. Me just going off on a tangent here.
And what's also really interesting, then she's got these pains of conscience, so she goes to New York, correct? To look for Missy.
Yeah, she runs away, and her family basically doesn't care hardly that she's gone. They're
exactly.
And Missy was already back, and her brother's kind of like, yeah, well, they're kind of around here, and they're kind of mad that you're gone, but there was no real urgency.
But not really, right? Like they didn't even care. I mean, Missy was back. They were giving interviews. They were on the TV. So they kind of didn't care about Dawn, you know. So that was also, you know, like she was beaten down, and then she was beaten down even more. Basically, nobody cares about her, you know. So
well, I think her biggest issue was she had to lose the glasses. I mean, once she lose the glasses, her social standing would have increased by like 1 million.
Yeah, those glasses were horrible.
There was like Coke bottle glasses.
Yeah. And then on top of everything, she was making her thank you speech, you know, and then the whole school would be chanting, you know, "Wiener dog," correct?
Yes, the school assembly. She went up and did a speech about her sister returning, and how family was thankful, and everyone, instead of just appreciating that she went up there to talk about her sister, instead of just started chanting at her.
Yeah. So,
well, we can say one thing in the context of the movie. She was a very tough cookie, I suppose. Not the character Cookie, but a very tough character, that she was able to work her way through all this crap that was going on.
She was, of course, she was. And you mean Heather Matarazzo?
Yes, Heather. Well, I mean, not the actor, but Dawn.
Oh, okay, you mean character.
Right.
Yeah, she was. It was very tough for her, and Heather did a good job, of course. Maybe we can jump to the acting.
We'll move on to acting here. We're sitting at about we can move on. I mean, it is an older movie, but we don't want to spoil the whole plot if you've never seen it before.
Exactly.
Right.
So what I wanted to say is that Heather Matarazzo, she internalized this Dawn character excellently. For me, it was really good performance. And also I found Brendan Sexton, who played the Brandon character, really good, as well as basically Steve character was played, not sure about his name right now, but all these three actors, they are still really busy. You know, this movie actually put them on the map, and they became not genius actors, but they're pretty busy, all of them. Right.
Some interesting things I wanted to mention about Heather. Apparently, she had her first kiss on set. So a lot of the things that she was experiencing on set were actually things that she was experiencing first time in real life. And when
that's pretty interesting, actually.
And actually, when she was on set as well, she didn't know what a lesbo was. So, at some point, someone explained it to her. She was running around the set saying, I'm a lesbo, because I guess she eternalized what was her character, and she thought she was a lesbian. Now, I don't think she's a lesbian in real life now, but I think... Actually. Is she? Because I watched a more recent thing she was doing, and it seemed like she wasn't. But I think maybe for a brief period she was experimenting, and then maybe at some point she realized that was not her. But
actually, she married a lady.
She's not still married, though, is she?
I think she is.
Okay. Well,
She married only 2018, and she actually said, she actually said about this movie that that in this movie she actually discovered her sexuality, which I don't personally see realistic, but whatever,
right.
And not sure what she wanted to say by that. However, she is.
Maybe she eternalized the character a little too much and took it a little bit too far in her real life. Maybe it was.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter at this point. But the other thing too that I found out is that she was never invited to the screening at the Toronto Film Festival, and she was a little bit maybe not angry, but she was kind of
disappointed. I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a budget thing. It was never really explained why she wasn't invited. But mind you, she was young at the time, and she was in school, and apparently the other kids in her grade were very jealous of her acting and being in a film, because I guess maybe she wasn't very popular, and all of a sudden she got sort of launched into the stratosphere of her popularity because she's in a film now.
Yeah.
So people automatically, when you're kids, you get jealous if people have stuff that you don't.
Yeah, I believe so, because I think children actors are kind of, let's say in LA, it would be normal. So you wouldn't experience some kind of jealousy and so on. But her living in Long Island, it might be a little bit different.
Right.
So she might experience some jealousy and maybe even bullying or whatever, So
it's funny.
It's kind of believable, right?
It's kind of believable, but it's also funny because I was watching on YouTube, she had done a small skit. I guess this movie's still close to her heart because she did a small skit called the Special People's Club or something like that. This is maybe about 4 or 5 years ago now. And
okay.
And she does a small skit. Now, obviously, she's much older now, and she has a bunch of high school or maybe grade 8ers there, and they're discussing what they want out of life, and she's basically, she goes back to them. She starts bullying each and every one of the kids that she was sort of mentoring in this teen's bedroom.
Okay.
And she starts kind of losing it, and she's kind of mouthing off to them, and then all of a sudden the mother of one of the kids comes in and says, "Who are you and what are you doing here in my kid's bedroom?" kind of a thing. And then she kind of scolds one of the kids, "Why can't you just have boys in your bedroom like a normal girl?" or something to that effect.
Yeah.
That was kind of an interesting little skit that she did there about
I gotta
20
watch
years
that.
later.
Yeah.
I guess it was probably like a reflection on, because the Wiener Dog movie was that a 20-year anniversary? I guess it must have been 20 years.
2016, yeah,
roughly
almost
20 years. Yeah,
almost, yeah.
So I had a reflection on that.
Yeah.
The other actors I found, they were decent. I mean, Eric, who played Steve, Christina, who played Cookie, Christina, who played Cynthia, they were all decent. I didn't really look too much into the history of the other actors, but I'm assuming they all are pretty good at what they do.
Well, what I remember movies, I saw Heather Matarazzo. I remember her in a really short role in Devil's Advocate. She was a victim of some. Again, she was a victim for some teacher who would, sexually assaulted her, whatever. And also I saw her in the Hostel movie. Hostel. She was, I think, in Hostel 2.
Oh.
Okay. So, and
well,
regarding...
she was trying to get out of her dorky girl role. I think she was struggling to get out of being typecast for that. So, yeah, I would definitely...
She was trying to get out of the role, yeah. And Christina Brucato, she's very famous from this TV show, Orange is the New Black. It's I think it's a female prison based, like a story is based on it's situated in the female prison. Not sure if you heard about it. And Brendan Sexton, who played Brandon McCarthy, he was also in some TV shows, and he was actually in the movie called Boys Don't Cry, which is also a very controversial movie, and he was there in back in '99. So he also gets busy. I see he's got lots of pre-production and post-production here, and as well as Heather and Christina Brucato. So I would say this movie, Welcome to the Dollhouse, kind of launched them to the acting business.
Right, for sure.
So I don't have much to say about acting. I found acting really good and realistic, maybe not stellar. Parents were played, by actors I never seen before, but they did a good job too, playing those unattentive, parents. Also, Mark character was played good. He was like really realistic geek, and with those glasses and
right. I had a little bit of a computer nerd, maybe.
Yeah, some sort of computer nerd, and not interested in girls because he needs to make his career and everything else. So it was nicely acted, and I don't have nothing against. All the other people were sort of like extras or very short appearance in the movie.
Right.
You have teachers, of course. You have short scene with the principal and so on, and that's it. That's pretty much it, right? And also Steve character was well played, because you could see this typical guy with long hair in 90s. I think in 90s, beginning of 90s, long hair were still like a thing, correct?
Oh yeah, I had long hair in high school too. It was a
thing, right? It was like Guns N' Roses, and correct. So
I still have a friend who has long hair, and he refuses to cut it. He's very stubborn about cutting it. It was back in the 80s. Well, I mean, you had all these sort of cliques. I guess we called them bangers. I mean, but I don't know what they would call them in the U.S. or anywhere else in the world. But long hair, and kind of little bit techie, maybe worked on cars and had a garage band or whatever,
Yeah. So basically, it was pretty realistic how he portrayed the character, right? Long hair and kind of like, I don't care about graduation. I want to go to New York and make it there. That's kind of thinking how it was back in 90s, correct? Like, I want to make a band, I go to New York, I'm going to make some money, fuck graduation and so on.
I don't think, to certain people, I don't think that's ever really left. There's still, do you remember there was a Jack Black movie where
okay.
I watched
High Fidelity, right?
High Fidelity, and I think he may have even done a second one, but I mean, it's very still popular to become a pop star or a rock star. Rock music.
Sorry. You mean School of Rock?
School of Rock. You're right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's still a thing. However, maybe it maybe a little bit less, I would say.
Well, yeah, it is less simply because rock music isn't as popular. Like real rock music isn't as popular as it used to be. But yeah, that was the thing in the 80s and 90s. You want to everyone who was popular started a band. I mean, my cousin had I think his band was called the Flaming Cake Holes. And I don't know how he came up with that, but
okay. Yeah, so you see it's really there, it's realistic.
Right. So, anyways, you are currently listening to the Unsung Cinematics podcast. Anyways, I think we'll move on here to visual effects and whatnot. I'm going to be honest, I don't have a ton to say about it. We can talk about the camera angles a little bit. There was one scene that particularly impressed me in the cinematic style was actually at the beginning of the movie where Dawn is basically calling Cookie a lesbo, and they leave the camera pointed at the living room and the TV, and you see her walk out of the scene, and in the background you can hear her mother, I guess Lolita, arguing with Dawn, and I thought that was very well done from that aspect.
It was really interesting to see how she walks out of the scene, and then we see that we hear the verbal fight at the background.
Right. Yeah, it's very nice simply because most scenes or most films you see today, they will follow you around like a fly on the wall. But this one, it when you do it in this manner, you get it adds to the realism of the film, in my opinion.
It does, and it was done more times in the movie, and maybe even, I think it was a very good idea, like from Todd Solondz to make these kind of scenes. You have camera on the empty room, nobody is there, but you still can participate on the story by what you're hearing.
Right.
So basically you are like in the movie,
it's like you're sitting on the couch and listening to the argument happening.
Exactly. It's like you're sitting on the couch watching TV and you're listening to the argument. So this was really interesting on cinematical aspect of the movie. And
I think a lot of these types of creativity have kind of been lost over the years. All this creativity has given way to post-production stuff, creamy, goofy backgrounds where you don't see anything but a blur of color, super close shots of somebody's face that aren't needed. All these production value qualities that don't add to the story at all, and in fact probably in more times than not take away from the story.
We review lots of debuts and experimental movies with low budget, and you see, I think when you have a low budget you are getting really creative. Your creativity and talents kind of
they come out. Right.
Correct, a little bit more. However, I don't want to say I don't want to say and offend other directors, but I think when you get lots of attention and you have lots of money to make a movie, your budget is just crazy. maybe you kind of losing that.
You lose your edge, but you also get a little bit maybe lazy.
Lazy, maybe that youth enthusiasm would disappear and everything else a little bit more.
Well, a perfect example would be the Star Wars trilogy in the prequels. The original Star Wars trilogy had much less budget to work with, and he was very creative with his special effects to kind of make it seem like you were there in the movie. And then when you move to the prequels, everything is CGI, and all that creativity went out the window. It kind of...
Exactly, yeah.
I'm not saying the prequels were necessarily bad, but you could see that the originals from the 70s and 80s were on a different caliber than the prequels.
Exactly. The prequels, the new Star Wars, they kind of lost that cinematic patina, that kind of like magic of creating something, and that all that process of like new ideas and everything else, how they were working with the sounds and
right,
visual effects and everything else. So
right, the word you used, magic, I think explains it perfectly. Remember the Disney motto was, "Do you believe in magic?"
Exactly. So
the magic is gone from cinema. I hate to say it, but for many of these blockbusters and even average middle of the road movies, some of the magic has disappeared, and it's too bad. Yeah,
it's too bad. Yeah, and but we still have, each year there are, interesting projects, new people coming, to make movies and so on. So it's still there. We just have to look it up.
Well, I'm sure we'll have lots of opportunity. We've been reviewing a lot of older movies. Maybe we should put some more newer ones on our list so that we can maybe recapture some of the magic of these lesser known films.
Yeah, we do that, of course. After what was planned, we can start with the newer movies, of course.
Right. How did you feel about the mood? What was when you were watching the movie? Did you have a feeling at all? Like, were you in a certain frame of mind?
It was really interesting because you're watching this really sad and traumatic situation of Missy being kidnapped, and you have this really sad mother, sitting by the kitchen table waiting for a phone call, and at the background, it was kind of ironic, at the background, you have this Nutcracker playing, Tchaikovsky. Nutcracker,
yeah,
and then you have Swan playing also, and those are actually the melodies to famous ballet, plays.
Okay.
Okay, so I found it kind of like my mood was like this is really ironic and tragic and funny at the same time,
yeah.
Because she goes like, the police would call her like they found her tutu in New York Times Square, and at the same time you have this, music from Tchaikovsky, this dramatic music, which I found actually funny at the situation,
Yeah.
Also, you have this rock music, just to mention, maybe Daniel Ray is actually author of the song "Welcome to the Dollhouse." He's a person from New York who used to play also in famous club CBGB.
Right.
And so I found it really, really good. It generated in me, certain tragic comedy mood.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's your take on this, but
I wasn't moved in one direction or the other. It was more of a nostalgia a little bit for me, and with a touch of comedy, but I didn't feel any particular way. Maybe it could be because I have experienced so many of these sort of teen comedy or teen dramas and TV shows when I was young, that maybe it was just a little bit like another one for me, with some interesting changes to the cookie cutter scenario that you would normally have.
Okay, so basically you're saying like there was so many high school movies, of course,
right,
back in 90s, correct?
Right.
And 80s also, you have so many, like Breakfast Club, Better Off That, I mean. Okay, I don't want to,
Well, even the last one we did, The Brick, right?
Oh, Brick, you have so many high school movies, but I think this one is a little bit more particular because those typical high school movies, they tend to either make, those students like kind of like maybe cliched a little bit, like
right.
You have like typical high school story,
Yeah, it's cliche, but this one was more unique for certain. The high school movies that generally came out, a lot of them were kind of fluffy in nature. This one was definitely not fluffy.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't like to say like this is just one of many, right? I think this is
no, it's
unique.
not one of many. There's probably a few others that are similar to it, but it wasn't a whole. It's not a subgenre, I suppose, in itself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's pretty experimental. For it kind of stands out, of all the other high school movies.
And too, because of the nature of the plot, their director's choices, the effects. They didn't really have to go all in on the optical effects and stuff like that. They seemed to use what they had effectively rather than. I could be completely out to lunch. Maybe he did it so well that it wasn't noticeable, but I felt like he was. Todd was able to use all the effects to their fullest.
He used all the effects, and he used only in-camera effects. So basically he used so-called in-camera effects, meaning using only the camera equipment.
Right.
Such as the scene you mentioned already, like Dawn walking out of the room and then camera is staying, in the empty room.
I don't think it didn't seem like there was a lot of. I don't know if he used dollies or cranes or anything of that nature. It maybe for a couple scenes, he might have had to, where maybe it was just impractical. But
at that garden party, there were some cranes used. However, it's mostly just basically not handheld, but sometimes handheld camera, but mostly it's just regular, camera on the tripod. Basically, we have few.
Right.
So he did what he did with basically photographing the movie with plain camera, no effects, It's a Dolby colored movie, just straightforward, plain movie, with no effects.
And I think it proves that you can make a good movie without all the bells and whistles and a super high budget equipment.
Yeah, it proves, definitely.
You don't have to go all in and have every little piece of equipment possible. Sure, the equipment helps make the job easier to a certain extent, but if you want to make an engaging story, make an engaging story first, and then the equipment comes second.
Exactly, and this is actually what used to be done in French cinematography. I'm talking about the Eric Romer movies, like straightforward moral tales. Basically, you have just camera and characters and story, nothing else. No tweaking, just straightforward story. So,
did you notice? Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, did you notice if there was any use of pyrotechnics or creative use of the weather in the film? I didn't notice because I didn't have a chance to go back and thoroughly inspect the movie, but I'm kind of curious if he put any of that into effect.
No. I mean, many scenes were done during the night. I imagine the scene where she was in the clubhouse, whatever, with Brandon, were done in night. So basically you have day scenes, like exterior scenes, and you have the night scenes. But I didn't notice any particular playing with the weather or, correcting, like modifying the weather or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much straightforward, like you have this, ordinary day,
Yes.
Maybe it's sunny, maybe it's a little bit overcast,
I think maybe the weather was very in their favor because I didn't really see too much in effect of rain.
No, it was always basically sunny regarding the exterior scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many days it took? Did you read something on this?
I didn't see anything, but I can quickly check.
I don't think you will find it because I read through and I couldn't find it. But I think it was pretty much. It was pretty quick production, I think.
Well, yes, it would. If you're not going to have I should have watched the credits to see, but I should have watched the credits, and I would be able to tell you a little more about the production staff. But yeah. Anyways, we could probably move on, I suppose. I think there's not a lot to talk about in visual effects. Anyways, we got the basics on the board here.
Okay, I'm all for it.
All right, so we'll move into our overall opinion. I'm not going to say too much movie other than that I enjoyed it, as I would in not many, but other high school movies. I will say that it's a little better than the standard high school role that you would see. So under the style, directing, and theatrical score, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Under the plot and story, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Casting and acting, a 7 out of 10. And then special effects, a 6 point. You know what? I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Because, you know what?
Okay.
I made a good argument there for a 7. I was going to give it a 6.5. But you know what? The fact that they didn't have a lot of special effects maybe is a good thing. So I'll give them a 7. And for my overall rating, well, obviously a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this movie should be sung. So if you're into high school dramas or slight comedies or anything high school related, or even if you're not, it should be sung.
Nice.
So
I'm kind of happy you gave a good rating to my pick, actually. So.
It might be due to the reason that I wasn't able to watch the movie a second time and pick it apart like I normally do. So.
Okay, still good anyway.
Yeah.
So my rating is style, directing, and theatrical score. It's 8 for me out of 10. Plot, story, and score. Just because it is really unique and exploring all kinds of angles, of the high school life. 8 out of 10. Cast, acting, score. Like I said, this movie launched career for the new guys in the business, and also it launched Todd Solondz' career. That's why he could do other movies, even though he was kind of turned off by his first not very successful movie. So also 8 out of 10. And I mean, the use of camera and straightforward work and and everything else, and some very interesting elements and work with the angles and so on. I give it 8 out of 10. So my rating is 8 out of 10, of course, and it should be sung.
8 out of 10 and should be sung. So we may not have agreed on the score, but we certainly agreed on the unsung rating. So
that's right.
should be sung, man. We should be sung. So Rosto, I want you to do your best singing impersonation of Dawn, if you can.
What do you mean? You want me to sing?
Yes, sing the unsung.
Oh, okay.
We should come up with our own little jingle here for our unsung range. It'll be like, "This should be sung. This should be sung."
Oh, Jesus!
in our bad singing voices.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good to chase out the mice from apart.
Chase out the rats and the dogs and the cats.
Yeah, and anyway. Like I said, like we said, basically, it kind of encaptures, life in basically end of 80s, beginning of 90s, how it was. The movie is available all over the place, Amazon, Google Play, and whatnot. But I think you can buy even DVD and so on. Right. So it's no problem to watch it, and it might be a little bit less, maybe, understandable for newer generation.
Right. I did leave links if you want to purchase this on the episode guide on our website, if you want to purchase it as well, or actually watch it on Amazon, I think. But
and next movie is.
Yes, so this actually is going to conclude the episode. So as promised, in next week's episode, we will continue on from our top 7 priests in film review and dive deeper into the film The Mission, which is starring Robert De Niro. And in this movie, he makes a spiritual journey through the New World. It's based on the Jesuits. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, or you had listened to our previous podcast about priests, then do obviously check us out. And one other thing for next week's episode, we have a special surprise guest in store for you. So do stay tuned for that. Also, if you like this podcast, do visit us on our Facebook page, as that's where we will be taking a majority of our comments. Visit us on Twitter, and most definitely subscribe using your favorite podcasting application, whether it be on your phone or on desktop. Please donate to this podcast, as it helps us to continue with our content. We are also looking for sponsors for 15-second ad rolls. during this podcast. And do check out our social media links, our website, and episode guide, which are all available through our Spreaker page at Spreaker.com/show/unsung-cinematics. And our episode guide is also an invaluable tool to find out about each episode, and the relevant links are available there as well. If you have any questions or concerns, you can please email myself or Rosto at unsung.cinematics@gmail.com, or leave a comment on our Facebook or Twitter page. That's going to conclude this episode. Thank you, Rosto, for joining us. And you have yourself a wonderful morning, day, afternoon, or whatever it is that you're having. Thank you. The Unsung Cinematics Podcast is produced by Multimedia Corp and is the joint ownership of Rastislav Miklos and Stuart Rathje. Copyright 2020, all rights reserved. The statements in this podcast are the opinions of the host and not necessarily a true statement or literal fact.